Welcome to the Queer Spirit Podcast. We're your hosts, Nick Fenagoni
and Tanya Marco Viodo. Our Queer Spirit Podcast spotlights queer artists, healers, practitioners, activists, and beings
who share their work and magic with our LGBTQIA, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming communities and the collective.
Our guest today is Tanya Oriana, aka Madre Jaguar. She, they. Madre Jaguar is a queer, non-binary birth doula, oracle, and curandera of Mayan, Pipil, Nahual, and Garifuna descent. Born in Los Angeles, California, to Salvadoran immigrants and raised in Mexico. Their practice is rooted in their ancestral heritage and indigenous traditions of Mexico and Central America.
We begin by inviting Tanya to guide us in a grounding practice. Tanya then shares her story of how she became aware of her gifts as an oracle and curandera while working in a community clinic. We share and explore the practice of platica, a heart-to-heart conversation, which is at the core of Tanya's work with clients. We end our time together with a short tarot reading by Tanya for the Queer Collective.
To learn more, find them at www.immadre.com. That's immadre.com.
All right. So welcome, Tanya. I'm going to have you start us out by grounding us before we begin our conversation today.
Thank you. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a moment and begin taking deep and slow breaths. And as you're taking deep and slow breaths, begin connecting with your body, scanning your body from your crown all the way down to the bottoms of your feet, sending your breath towards any places in your being, in your body that are asking for extra love, for extra attention at this moment. And as you're taking deep and slow breaths, sending your breath to those places. And with every exhalation, opening up, relaxing, surrendering to this moment, to the here and now. Taking the space to give yourself thanks for being here. Inviting all of your energy, all of your presence, all of your awareness to return to you, to your physical body, to be present here and now. Breathing in those parts of yourself that are returning at this moment. And now bringing your attention to the lower half of your body. We begin to imagine or visualize the lower half of our body as a tree trunk, a mighty, strong tree with deep roots, deep and ancient roots that at this moment begin to penetrate through concrete, through soil, through different layers of rock, connecting to the roots of all the beings surrounding you at this moment, plants, trees, mycelium, and going all the way down into the womb of Mother Earth, who opens up to receive you. She welcomes you. She welcomes this sacred connection, anchoring your roots deep into Mother Earth, letting yourself rest here for a moment, letting yourself be held, giving thanks to Mother Earth, giving thanks to all the beings that are connected to you at this moment, remembering that the roots of all things are holding each other. Now we bring our awareness back to the upper half of our body, which is shape-shifting, transforming into the top part of a tree, into branches and leaves, feeling yourself extending out into the heavens above, expanding your branches, opening up your crown. And just as we connected to the heart of Mother Earth and the womb of Mother Earth, we now greet and connect to the heart of the heaven, the heart of the sky, the heart of the universe. Wherever that heart might be, it feels our connection. It welcomes us. It welcomes you. You can feel a beam of golden, radiant light coming down from the heart of the universe, traveling through time and space, and pouring into your crown, pouring into your leaves, your branches, going down your trunk, noticing how at this moment the heart of the universe, the heart of Mother Earth are connecting within your own heart. And I invite you at this moment to place your hands over your heart, acknowledging this place, this doorway, this portal, connecting us to all the wisdom, all the medicine that is available to us at this moment from Mother Earth, from the Cosmic Mother, reciting into your own heart, reciting in your heart, taking a deep breath and giving thanks once again. And here we are, very gently, very slowly, beginning to move your fingers, your toes, beginning to shift your body. And when you're ready, very gently, very slowly, fluttering your eyes open. Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hello.
Thank you for that beautiful practice.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to
Yeah,
share today.
welcome.
Yeah.
So, Tanya, I thought we would start out by having you share a little bit of your queer story and the path to yourself as your practices and your offerings as a curandera and a doula and an oracle to let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and where you came from.
Thank you. I feel like I was always that weird kid. I always felt different growing up. I was very sensitive. I remember that I had this game when I was a kid where I would tell my classmates, I was in kindergarten, and I would tell my classmates, like, flowers have messages for us. And I remember, like, specifically, like, grabbing bougainvillea flowers and, like, opening them up and being like, flowers have messages for us. And the other kids being like, what? So, when I think about it, it's like it's always been there. I feel like there have been different moments in my life where spirit, the universe, life, love have just like helped me align to the path. But, I feel like every decision in my life that I've made eventually led me to where I am now. Before I was doing this work, I went to school for video production, and school is where I met my first magical witchy friend, and she was the first person to give me mushrooms when I was 19 years old. And from my first experience with mushrooms, it was very intense, so intense that I remember I asked for all the electronics to be turned off. We had to unplug everything. No one else was allowed to come into the room. And one of the first memories from that journey is that I was like laughing about the fact that I was like, wow, I'm a very old soul. And here I am thinking that I'm this 19-year-old kid. And isn't that hilarious? And just like laughing about it and realizing, wow, like all of my problems that I think I have right now, it's like, it's nothing. Like life is like really vast. And my first medicine song came through at that moment, even though like I didn't know that that's what it was. But after that, like I was never really able to like go back to norm. It's like something open within me, and I just had this awareness. And, it just like over the time, over years, like again, things started happening. After that journey, that friend that gave me mushrooms for the first time, I'm sending her a lot of love right now. She also gifted me my first tarot deck. And so I remember that like I would just pull cards without really knowing what I was doing. And it was like a way for me to connect with people. And also feeling really surprised because, the words that were coming through, the messages that I was receiving were really resonating with people. And so that was college. Eventually, I dropped out of art school. I went to work in the industry, and I did that for 6 years. And my last job, I realized my heart wasn't in it anymore, and that I actually wanted to do something where I would be helping people instead of selling them things. I was helping produce and coordinate commercials and music videos. So a lot of it was like just selling things to people and realizing that was not my calling anymore. It was not what I wanted to do. And after I quit production, one day I was like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to work at a community clinic or to work at a clinic? And I kid you not, a week later, I get a call from a family member, and they're like, "Hey, I'm working at this clinic, and I need some help, like organizing some archives." And I was like, "Okay." And so I went there. It was only supposed to last for a week. They ended up hiring me, and I worked there for, I think, about 2 years. But then what I started doing was that I was translating for the doctors. And when I started translating for doctors, two things happened. One is that I realized that Western medicine is really just treating symptoms, but not necessarily trying to find the root cause of the problem. And then I started hearing people's spirit guides, right? And I just remember this one like case specifically where this woman came in. She had been suffering from migraines. And the doctor said, "I'm going to give you this pill to help with the migraines." And I heard, well, the pill's not going to fix it until she heals her relationship with her father. And I was like, what? And I couldn't speak. I couldn't say that because I was just there to interpret. So we're not really supposed to share that. Plus, like, it was at a moment in my life where, like, how can I say this to this person without them thinking that I'm crazy? But that kept happening and happening and happening. And so I started meditating and I started praying for guidance. And one day on my lunch break, walked in front of a store on Sunset Boulevard, and there was a big sign there that said Reiki hands-on energy healing class. And something about hands-on energy healing really resonated with me. I had never heard about Reiki. This was like 12 years ago when Reiki was not really that popular. Not a lot of people knew what it was. But I signed up for the class. After the class, we had the opportunity to practice on someone. The moment I put my hands on that person, this light bulb went off. And just this moment of, oh, this is what I do. And that was 12 years ago. And then a lot of things happened in between. But, eventually 2012 was definitely a year where I had to I realized this is something that I wanted to be doing full time. Like I used to ditch my job and go do tarot readings by donation at a yoga studio and think like, oh, what if this could be what I did all the time? And then, I feel like the moment that you make that commitment and you say, okay, universe, God, source, this is what I want to do, like things just start lining up and happening. And so, yeah, this is what I've been doing full time for the past 10 years. And this is it. Even when I try to I'm gonna try to go do something else, very quickly I realize, no, I need to get back on my path. Which I don't know if it happens to you guys, but I go through these moments where I question my reality and I have to sit with myself and question why do I do what I do? Who is it benefiting? Am I doing it from a place of integrity? And then yeah, things just line up again and I realize yeah, why would I be doing anything else? That's my story.
Yeah. I sometimes have the question, this is a really weird, people are paying me to do this thing that I'm doing. This is the weirdest job.
But it's beautiful. Yeah, I love it. It's not the easiest, right? I used to have a teacher that would tell me, there are two paths, and one path is going to feel really fun and cushy, and there's going to be friends, and there's going to be things there that are going to seem really attractive. And then there's this other path that's going to feel oh, it's up the hill, it's kind of narrow, it's kind of steep, and it's going to feel hard. But at the end of that path, there's really a treasure. And on the other path, you might find things along the way that feel like a treasure, but in the end, it's not really leading nowhere. And, the older I get, the more and more I realize it's true. Sometimes it feels like a steep walk up the hill, but at the same time, I feel like it's made me so much stronger. And it's made me that much more committed to myself, to my practice, to my boss. And by my boss, I mean Mother Earth, Spirit. And yeah, even though it's hard sometimes, I have to say there's also a lot of blessings, a lot of medicine, a lot of lessons. And that's the path. Not for the faint of heart, but.
Thanks for sharing. Thank you for really naming and sharing some, these moments that you've had along your path. And I really appreciate you naming your work with mushrooms and psilocybin in a way that's very sacred. I think we need that more in the world where folks talk about that just very openly and freely. And so thank you. And for naming tarot, something else that I think is very, a potent, badass tool that, another medicine that I think is just, something that is important to name out there. Yeah, it's really beautiful to hear your story. And I love how what you described as you're like, well, my teacher said there's this path and it's all flowery and fun. And then there's this other path. So, and I appreciate you naming that and the tenderness around what it means to answer the call to this type of calling, if you will, and what that might entail.
Thank you. With, mushrooms, tarot, two medicines that now, I'm realizing they've been with me from the beginning. And with mushrooms, I have to say, like, from the beginning, I knew that they were sacred and not something to play with. They gave me a very important message. And, like, I think my second or third journey, they were like, you are never to consume us just to party or have a good time. It doesn't work that way. Like, this is, like, important work. And so yeah, I've always thought of myself also as a sort of transmitter for the mushroom. Like, they're always around and I feel like an instrument that helps them get to wherever they need to go. And Tarot, my best friend for like 20 something years, always there. I always travel with at least one deck of cards, and it's a beautiful practice to sit there and, ask literally any question. You can ask any question and Tarot will have an answer. Tarot will never tell you what to do, but it will give you an answer and it will show you like a path, a possibility, a timeline. And then it's up to us whether we want to go in that direction or not. So I also love that aspect of it is that it's not there to like tell you what to do. It's there to guide. It's there to show you what is possible. But then it's up to each individual to to make their decisions.
So, Tanya, I know that one of the processes you use with most of the people you work with, especially from the beginning, is platica. And I wonder if you can explain or define what that is for our listeners, and maybe we can take part in a little bit of a platica together.
Sure. Platica means to talk, right? So platica is a heart-to-heart talk. In curanderismo and traditional medicine, we believe that the first step is to have a platica with a person. When we create the space for them to feel safe to talk about what they are feeling, what they're experiencing, what they're going through, that is medicine, right? Sometimes the person, like, all they need is just someone that will hold that space so that they can listen to themselves and so they can process things out loud. When we talk is also, that's a way of moving energy. I'm no longer holding on to that energy or that feeling or that sensation or that tension, but I'm actually like giving it a voice. I'm actually like moving it out of my body and letting it move. And through a platica for me, so my job is to listen, right? To actively listen and to start following threads and to start following energy, right? So for example, if someone comes to me because their knee's hurting, right? But then I invite them, like, look, tell me about what's going on in your life. And then this person starts telling me that they're not feeling supported or that they're having a difficult time moving forward, right? Then I start to follow that energy, I start to listen, and then I also start to ask questions. Sometimes these questions are very intuitively guided. Like, I feel like, oh, I should ask them about this. And then asking that question will open another doorway. It's also a way to find what is the right medicine for this person, right? Does this person need, is it the healing only needed on a physical level? Do they need soul retrieval? Do we need to heal a childhood wound? There's so many things, right? And so a platica is a way to find that out, to find out what happened, to find out what's still going on and what's the best medicine to support that person. And with a platica, if we do it in person, we'll usually have a cafecito, or I'll prepare a cup of cacao for you, which is a heart opening medicine, or tea. Rose tea is usually always like around. because it's such a gentle yet powerful medicine, much like a cow. I tend to work with medicines and plants that help us open our hearts and soften our edges.
So I know before we started recording today, we already started a little bit of a platica, but I wonder if maybe the three of us want to take a few moments just to sort of share what's on our hearts.
You know, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, it just feels that it's like, ooh, where does that go? I think, thank you for asking that. And thank you for describing, a platica and all of the energies that are associated to it. And really, truly, what's been on my mind is the student protests and encampments that are happening right now. I think have, in my personal lens and what I'm witnessing, has opened up yet another layer of this idea of grief and having a voice and speaking in or out and people having their backs. And I'm recognizing, I came from a system where I was assimilated. So a lot of stuff was just reported like this is happening somewhere else in the world. And that's how it was reported to me as a kid versus this is happening. And I understand and have a greater understanding that this impacts all of us, whether it's climate or activities or events that are happening. And I feel a sense of there's this grief about how the lens in which I was raised, right? And it kind of pisses me off. So I'm very fired up for the students that are having an opportunity to say, we have figured out we are not okay with this, right? They're saying that in so many different iterations, knowing that we're all connected, knowing that, they're coming from this beautiful place of they get it, they figured out the broken code. And now they're like, we want new code, in liberation. And I think I have a different understanding of it, that as I'm going through what it feels like to grieve, being raised to assimilate and be detached from my indigenous culture and from my magic and tools and practice, this feels very tender again, but also in a way that how can I be a part of and respond in a way that is supportive and care centered. So dropping that right there. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya Mark, for that reminder. I always appreciate how you are, in our connection, you're sort of keeping me abreast of what's happening in the greater world. And I know for me, like I really struggle to be open to all the stuff that's happening in the world because I get easily overwhelmed with just how open I can be. And so, I try to work more on a smaller level and one-on-one kind of level in my work in the world, or just sending prayers and energy and that kind of thing. But when you were sharing that, it reminded me, I didn't even think of this till you were talking about it, that I was on the UC Berkeley campus just last weekend for a concert, and I didn't see any protests happening there, at least not to my knowledge. It was interesting though. It was a Friday night, and like I got out of the concert at like 9:30, and there was just lots of activity on the campus. And I was just like, this is really interesting. And one of the activities right outside the concert hall where I was all these students who were there, like they were part of some like dance club or dance troupe or something, and they were all like dancing, and it was just like they were really committed to that energy. And I think about like the way that, who knows what their intentions were, but thinking about like the way they're bringing that energy to the campus, and then maybe on the other side of the campus you have these peaceful protesters, and then on another side of the campus people are doing research and that kind of thing. And it was almost like a microcosm for the world. There's multiple things happening at once, and how do we hold and sit with that? Or how do I hold and sit with that in my heart? How do I make space for the things that are challenging or difficult, that are a struggle or a conflict, but also holding the beauty and the sorrow too? That's something that I struggle with, but I'm feeling more open being here with the three of us together to be able to do that.
Yeah, I resonate with what you both are sharing. Definitely feeling that grief and feeling the rage, feeling sadness, feeling a lot of emotions, so feeling a lot of love, and like remembering that, yes, this is happening. There are so many things happening in the world. at this moment. And so sometimes it's very overwhelming and it's easy to get lost in all the noise. But, as we're holding this grief, as we're also holding joy, like what is each one of us guided to do at this moment? Because we all incarnated in this, into this timeline at this moment of the planet. And at this moment, which, I think of it as very much a birth. And when something new is being born, we have to go through this process of death, of destruction, of chaos. But there's always like that hope for that new life, for that new beginning. So right now it's like it's really admirable how all of these young people are mobilizing and they're like, we're gonna make noise and we're gonna like be present here to bring awareness to the situation that has been going on for way too long, right? And I could get lost in the grief. I could get lost in the rage to the point where I get paralyzed. But is that really serving anyone? And so, as I'm thinking about this, like, what do I personally feel guided to do about it is I feel like, my way of supporting and being a doula for this collective birth that we're going through is I keep thinking about how do I cultivate hope for myself and for all of us? How do I cultivate those pockets of sweetness and tenderness in the midst of a world that feels very jaggedy and pokey right now? And so that's what's present in my heart. And it's interesting because when you ask the question, what's in your heart right now? I feel this like joy and this excitement of there's something that is like already coming in this direction and I don't know what it is, but it's almost like I can feel it, I can taste it, and it creates a lot of joy and excitement in me. So yeah, like I'm trying my best to hold all of it with love and tenderness, but again, not to get paralyzed because I'm feeling a certain way, but to actually like think creatively, think with that energy of like love and joy. How can I bring more of this love, more of this joy, especially into these places where there's a lot of darkness and pain, right? And so just remember, like we all have our own little or big part to play, right? For some of us, that will be like being present in the protests. For some of us, that might be like donating funds if we have the funds. For some of us, it will be like, I'm gonna hold space for my community so that we can process this grief together. Prayer is so powerful. I feel like that is also one of the medicines and tools that has always been with me. So I didn't share this. My family's very Catholic. I grew up going to Catholic school. I wanted to be a nun. So I know that prayer is powerful. And so we have to pray for what we do want, right? And I had an elder tell me once, when it gets darker, that's when we have to sing louder. That's when we have to pray even more. And that's when we dance with all of our being. And so this is one of those times where we have to pray, we have to sing, we have to dance, we have to transmute all of that energy, compost it so that new seeds can bloom. We also have to plant seeds, like metaphorical and literal seeds, if we want to keep hope alive. I feel like planting seeds is a very gentle but powerful act of revolution. You are affirming, I am embracing life and the continuation of life. To plant seeds, kids.
Yeah. Plant seeds, kids. I love that's like old school commercial shit. I love it, but in a really new magical way. Thank you for naming all of that. Ashe, ashe, ashe. And I also want to add that I feel like we're in a time where the invite is how do you want to react or respond? And I think you described that so beautifully, Tanya, that, there's options here, right? And the response is there's not a one size, it's not a one size fits all, right? For me, I feel like it's all about care, right? Care is part of my fucking DNA. It's part of how I rock and roll and care and community. So I find ways in which to share that and make it accessible and make sure that folks have spaces where they can be seen, heard, held, and explore their care, right? So I feel like it's kind of like this invite of we all carry superpowers in ways that can be super beneficial to our collective. And how can we tap into those, right? And be of service in that way. So I really appreciate you naming that the joy and all of those things, all of those ingredients, I feel are important parts. It's all of it, you know what I mean? And how do we find space for that? You know what I mean? And for ourselves, taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other, right? Super important right now.
Absolutely. And, if you're not sure what your medicine is, what your superpower is, I invite you right now, close your eyes, place your hands over your heart and ask, what is my superpower? What is my medicine? And the first thing that comes, just listen. Don't doubt it. Just go with it. This is also a time in which we have to learn how to reconnect our brains and our hearts. It's not one or the other, but it's both of them working together. It's like emotion and logic working together. So ask questions to your heart. Remember that your heart is always going to give you very direct yes, no answers. And then when you ask your mind, it's going to give us very long answers why we should or we shouldn't, or this could happen or that could happen. But when you ask your heart, it's going to be a very expansive yes. That's the path. That's what's for me, or a no. And like you will feel that no in your body. So, make time to listen.
Yeah, thank you for that. It reminds me, especially when you were talking about defining what a platica is, about some of the somatic work that I do with my clients. And I really encourage them to listen to their body. We will even talk about, like, when you gave that example about the person's knee, right? We'll listen to, like, what are they feeling in their body right now? And if that part or that feeling in their body could communicate with them, what would it be saying? Right. And not what does the mind think it is, right? And what does the brain think, but what does the body or the heart feel, that tightness in the belly or that energy in the left foot or, any of those things. So yeah, really listening to our hearts and our bodies about what wants to emerge and come forward.
Yes, our bodies are always talking to us, right? So every little thing, like if it hurts or if I'm sweating in a certain place, like everything is just a way of communicating with us. And the same way that I would say everything around us is like constantly communicating with us, the body of the earth is communicating with us. And us as the body of the earth, we're also like communicating with each other, with the world around us. And the first step is to listen, right? And like we talk to so many people in our profession, and when like one thing that really strikes me is when I invite them to feel, like, okay, feel your knee. They'll say, I think my knee is saying this. And then I'll be like, no, 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 don't think, feel. And even like the way in which we communicate, like when I started reading tarot, I would say that a lot. Like, I think this card says this. And then I went into a place where I went to it was like tarot booth camp in Salem, Massachusetts. Once upon a time, I worked at their psychic fair. And so it was like this room full of psychics. Like you had one on your left, one on your right, you had one behind you, one in front of you. And something that I learned there is that instead of saying, I think, what they would say is, I feel. And then I was like, oh, yeah, it's true. Because I'm not thinking about this. Like I'm literally like feeling it in my body, or I'm feeling it as intuition. So even the way in which we talk, like shapes our reality. So when I start saying I feel versus I think, it's a different layer, right? I feel and I think. There's a word in Spanish which is senti pensar, which means to feel, think. And so I don't know if we have that in English, but I've been using it. It's like I feel, think, right? I feel and I think.
So speaking of feeling and feeling into the earth, I know that you have a story that's in an anthology that's coming out that's kind of about feeling into the earth. So I wonder if you can share with our listeners a little bit about your story in that anthology.
Yes. So as I said earlier, everything is communicating, right? We are communicating, our bodies are communicating, the body of the earth is communicating. I was invited by Casey Zabala of Witches Confluence to be part of the Witches Anthology, which is coming out in October. And my offering for that anthology it turned out to be a poem, right? It's a poem that is based on a message that I received from a tree, a 500-year-old tree. This is when I was living down in Mexico, in Morelos. They have trees there that are called ahuehuetes. Ahuehuete means grandfather or elder. And so they're this type of, they believe they're Mexican cypress tree, but they can be really big. And so I was sitting with this tree and having a conversation with this tree, and this tree just says to me, "It hasn't been that long, you know." And I was like, "What? What hasn't been that long?" And the tree was like, "It hasn't been that long since you guys forgot to be in right relationship with us. I have siblings that are over 500 years old, and they remember, like humans and trees, we used to be in right relationship." And I was like, wow. And so I understood that from the perspective of a tree who can live to be thousands of years, 500 years, at least in the Americas and Turtle Island. It's not that long. It's a few generations for us as humans. But I was also like, wow, in 500 years, like we really like made a mess of things. But, this tree was sharing this message because from that tree's perspective, it's like, you can still turn it around. It hasn't been that long. Like, you still remember, it's still within you. We remember. And so, what I thought was going to be a story turned out to be a poem. The moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to get out of my head and just like speak to me and through me again, this poem came out. And it's in the Modern Witches anthology coming out in October. And there are many other amazing voices that are part of the anthology, many other magical people and witches that are sharing their medicine in different ways through essays, art, poetry, spells, recipes. So I'm really excited to be a part of it and really excited to see what everyone else shared as well.
Beautiful. We'll look forward for that and share info about that in the show notes.
Thank you. Okay, so I just pulled out the deck, a Modern Goddess deck, because I'm feeling called and guided to pull a card for the collective. So I'm going to invite you all to close your eyes for a moment. And at this moment, with love, with respect, with gratitude and reverence, I'm going to call upon all of our bright ancestors, those who are healed, who are well, those who can bring wisdom and medicine at this moment. I also invite our spirit guides, our guardians, our teachers, and all beings of light to be present and to gift us with a message today for the collective, for our collective empowerment, for our collective healing, for our collective liberation. Oh, okay. The card that came out, Six of Cups. Six of Cups for me is very much a card of childlike innocence and love, loving and sharing with each other in the way that a child shares, right? When we are children, we might fight, we might get mad at each other, but we don't hold on to that anger. Like a child gets upset with another child, an hour later, they're already like playing together again. So this to me, to wrap up everything that we've been talking about is a reminder to be gentle and kind with that little child that is inside of you, that is always going to be there. Listen to that child, hold that child. That child holds wisdom and medicine for you. And then remember that everyone around you is also holding a child that is probably wounded, right? So what if we start relating to one another from this place, from this love and this innocence? Six of Cups for me is also a card of plant medicine. So in the card, there's an older person giving or offering a cup full of flowers to a younger person. And so to me, that's a reminder of how plants, flowers, they are a bridge to help us reconnect with that inner child, to help us reconnect with the heart, and to help us connect with that energy of gentleness and community. There's enough for everyone. There's literally medicine for everyone in the planet, everywhere, at all times. So please, as you are connecting to your heart more, as you're listening to your inner child more, allow your heart to guide you towards plant allies, to reconnect with the earth, to reconnect with the world around you from a place where you know that there's a give and take. We're not just extracting or taking from nature or from each other or from ourselves. There's got to be a balance. Thank you for that message to all the beings that came and assisted us and brought this wisdom. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We ask that you continue guiding us and speaking directly to each and every one of us in a way that is easy to understand.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to share what I was sort of thinking as you were sort of sharing the insights from that card. I was reflecting back on what Tanya Mark brought up about the student protests and the conflicts around the world, and that, it's kind of like these students are kind of like, if we think about the whole world, like the inner child, they are like that child part of us that's sort of getting agitated, but drawing attention to something is calling attention to, the older people on the planet and saying, hey, look at this thing. This needs some attention and it's not right and it's not fair and that kind of thing. And we need to bring some love and some care and some healing to that and some sweetness through the offering of flowers and plant medicines. So yeah, that I just wanted to share that was coming up for me, and you shared that, sort of bringing our conversation full circle.
I'll just throw in the mix of thank you for sharing that and that message. And Nick, thank you for adding to it. And what came through for me was share care. Share care.
Anya, before we let you go, can you share with our listeners where they can find you and learn more about your work?
You can find me under a tree somewhere.
Talking to flowers.
Talking to flowers, planting seeds, petting kitties. So I am on Instagram, Madre.Jaguar is my Instagram handle. That's my social media platform that I use the most. I have the tiki-taki, but but I'm not so great at being in the tiki-taki, but I'm also there as Madre Jaguar, or through my website, www.iammadre.com.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Shall we close with a few breaths of gratitude? Does that feel good? I could feel you looking at giving me the look next, so I just received that magically. So just taking a moment, even if we want to just shift our position, maybe even a little shake or shimmy. Nice inhale and exhale. That feels good to you and your body and system. Bringing in gratitude for our shared time here today. Gratitude for our tools and guides and practices and medicines that were here with us, present with us. Sending these beautiful, beautiful vibrations of shared time and being in community out to all of our lineages and out to the world and to the collective. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ashe, aho, gracias.
Thank you for being here with us today, Tanya.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Resources that we share today can be found in our show notes and at thequeerspirit.com.
You're invited to follow our show on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, much love and blessings. Aho.